On this combustible episode of Mythbusters,
I see good things in our future.
we test a tale that brings out the teenage boy in all of us.
Dude, you gotta be careful.
It's non-stop fireworks for Tori, Grant, and Carrie
When in peril, I will use one of my coworkers as a human shield.
as they tackle the myth of the human skyrocket.
What? Oh my gosh.
Meantime, Adam and Jamie try turning the tables on their favorite episode of CSI
I am aimed.
to see if combining two supposedly non-lethal weapons
Welcome, Earthlings. We mean you no harm.
could actually make them a deadly duo.
There's your fireball.
With any luck, we will end up with a charred corpse.
Stand clear, I'm going hot.
Who are the Mythbusters? Adam Savage
That is science.
and Jamie Hyneman.
Things are gonna start to get a little crazy in here.
Between them, more than 30 years of special effects experience. Joining them, Grant Imahara, Carrie Byron,
Let's do it.
and Tori Belleci.
But don't worry, we're not gonna give up.
They don't just tell the myths, they put them to the test. First up, a shocking tale of crime scene chaos.
So what do we got?
Well, you remember a few months ago that you and I did a cameo on CSI?
I do. We played scientists in lab coats.
It was about a perp who had spontaneously combusted after being hit with a stun gun, and it turned out, upon investigation, that prior to being hit with a stun gun, he was pepper sprayed, and that the pepper spray had a flammable component in it, which, when coupled with the spark of the stun gun, caused him to burst into a huge fireball. And guess what happened after that episode aired?
We got a ton of requests to do it ourselves and test it for real.
Exactly right. It would appear that not only did we make a cameo on CSI, but CSI is making a cameo on Mythbusters.
The science unfolds in the CSI lab as Nick Stokes shows that stun gun plus pepper spray equals an instant massive fireball. It's a nice bit of TV, but we all want to know if it works in real life.
Well, if I'm going to potentially set something on fire, I think right here under Jamie's exhaust hood is as good a place as any to do it safely.
The boys have made a bold decision to simply set up the scene and go for it. Standing in for the victim is one dead pig.
We use pigs a lot on this show because they're great human analogs. But we're not wasting them because they're too darn tasty. In fact, after we're done with them here, I'm taking them home and cooking them up. You ready?
I am. Let's hook it up.
Okay.
With the pig analog securely fastened, Adam fits a small flannel shirt they've been saving for just the right occasion.
There we go.
Now Jamie unloads a whole can of police-issue pepper spray
All right. Time to take him down with the stun gun.
and hopefully replicate that CSI fireball.
I am aimed in 3. Yeah, I gotta say, I don't think we're gonna get fire in this one.
Okay.
2, 1. What do you know? I was right.
Yep, no fire.
That's disappointing.
That's putting it mildly. It's a complete dud. Even Adam's surprised by the totality of the failure.
I don't know what to say. We did everything right. No flaming pig.
Yeah, well, there are a number of different things going on here, and I think we need to break them out separately to see what's happening.
Before we call it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
And here's the breakdown. Successful combustion needs 3 things. The first is oxygen, and there's plenty of that. Second is something combustible, supposedly the pepper-soaked shirt. Third is a reliable source of ignition. So let's reboot this myth by re-examining the stun gun.
The operation of these stun guns is relatively simple, and it happens in 2 phases. Allow me to illustrate. The first phase, when you pull the trigger, the gun fires a pair of shiny little barbs across the room that embed themselves right into your skin. And the second part, it starts pumping voltage through these wires into those barbs and into your body. And when that voltage gets to your body, it starts interrupting your brain's ability to tell your muscles what to do, and you pretty much collapse in a heap on the ground.
But the question remains.
All right.
Can even 50,000 volts produce enough spark to start a human bonfire?
There you go.
Plenty of sparks. I have to say I'm kind of surprised. I was actually expecting that once those barbs embedded themselves in the pig flesh, they'd complete a circuit and we wouldn't see any sparks, but we do. Look at that.
I was also surprised that the barbs were creating sparks while they were fully embedded in the pig, but it's easy to understand why. The company has decided it's most efficient to simply tie a knot in the end of the wire so it locks into the hole like so, and they know that given the fact that they're using such high voltage in these things, that the spark will jump across into the needle and do its job. But that jumping spark also serves as a potential source of ignition.
But will it be big enough to ignite the myth? You know, we've dabbled with small sparks before.
How hard can it be to blow up a room full of gasoline?
And often enough, we're left disappointed.
Nothing. What a shocker.
So ideally, they'd like a much bigger spark. And they've worked out a way that perfectly fits the myth.
All right, let me describe the experimental setup here. This ham hock is our perp. This barb is the barb that's in his skin. This vinyl shower curtain is our perp's clothing, and this barb is the barb that didn't make it all the way to the perp's skin because it got caught up in his clothing. Let's see what happens.
It's an intriguing twist on the basic test, but will it work?
That's what I'm talking about. Nice big 3-centimeter spark through the clothes into the guy's flesh. Bingo.
That's a big tick for reliable ignition. Next up, they'll be pushing the button on pepper spray. Our second myth has blatant disregard for self-preservation written all over it.
So, a guy is lighting off fireworks at a German fireworks festival, and he decides to take an action figure, strap a skyrocket to it, and send it flying.
Well, I used to do that all the time when I was a kid.
Yeah, but that's not the myth. The myth is that he then decides to step it up and strap the fireworks to himself. So he gets around 400 skyrockets, he attaches them to himself, he builds a ramp, he lights them all off, and whoosh, he goes flying 150 feet over a lake and splashes down to safety.
The details are delightfully vague. All we know is that some guy built some kind of ramp and launched himself with 400 skyrockets. Is that even remotely possible? Or is it a special kind of stupid?
All we do know for sure is that he wasn't a professional, so likely the fireworks he used were over the counter.
All right, well, why don't we just start there? We'll take some of these skyrockets, we'll add some weight and find out exactly how much one of these skyrockets can lift.
Good idea, because if we can find the carrying capacity of a single firework, then we can calculate how many it's going to take to lift an average man, somebody like 200 pounds.
So they book the bomb range and get hold of the biggest over-the-counter skyrockets money can buy.
We're out at the Alameda County Bomb Range, so we can test the most powerful consumer fireworks that we could find.
Then, with the help of a high-speed camera and one of the biggest scales we've ever used,
Does this look straight? We'll time how long it takes to get from the bottom of the scale all the way to the top. That, plus knowing how long the scale is, will give us the speed. Once we have the speed, we'll find the carrying capacity by adding weight to the tip of the firework until it slows it down by 50%. Then we'll call that our carrying capacity.
the plan is rock solid, but it still needs some caressing and finessing.
Now for these tests, it's important that these skyrockets have identical flight paths. So I've hooked up the steel cable that we can connect our fireworks to. So that way, each test we have the same path, but we do not change the thrust of the rocket.
These early tests are all about thrust, and the aim is simple, to see how much weight a skyrocket can bear before it stops skyrocketing. The first control rocket carries no extra weight whatsoever.
Here we go.
Blink and you miss it. but the high-speed camera captures and records every detail.
Okay, so we went 32 feet in 0.4 seconds.
Okay, that's 80 feet per second. That's around 55 miles an hour. That's a pretty good speed.
Great, let's add some weight.
The extra weight comes courtesy of some heavy-duty nuts. Each one weighs exactly
50 grams.
All right, this is perfect. So I'll just glue it to the top of the rocket and we'll find out if this affects the thrust of it.
Yeah.
Carrie lights the fuse, then scampers. The extra weight only slowed the rocket by 20%. So instead of adding just one more nut to the next rocket, they'll add 2.
Okay, this is consumer-grade firework with a 150-gram load. Here we go. Yeah!
Definitely slowed it down.
Yeah,
Definitely.
we might have found the number. I like that.
The replay confirms that they've got what they wanted, a 50% reduction in speed. That's the good news. Now, here's the bad news.
Well, with 400 rockets, 150 grams, that's 60 kilograms. That's a carrying capacity of about 130 pounds.
But wait, the guy alone without all his gear in this myth is 200 pounds.
Yeah, it's not looking good for the myth. I mean, you would need well over 400 rockets to lift this guy.
In fact, they'd need around 800 of these US-made rockets to haul a full-grown man. So here's hoping somebody's got a plan B. Out at the Treasure Island Fire Test Facility, Adam and Jamie plan to ignite some pepper spray.
I love it out here.
They've already shown that the spark from a stun gun could have some kick to it. Now, to advance the investigation.
Is pepper spray flammable? And if it is, which one is the most flammable? Here's our methodology for finding out. We're going to take each of our samples and spray it from this location over this open flame, both from 6 inches away, like this, and from 18 inches away. By the end, we should conclude which one is our most highly flammable candidate.
Different sprays have different recipes, so we'll test 5 different types, some of which aren't used by the California cops.
These pepper sprays are non-lethal, but they are really pretty nasty. In fact, when we were testing with them earlier, I managed to get some on my hands and my skin was irritated for days. The crew that was taping this was coughing and sneezing. It was really kind of unpleasant. So this time around, we've got a hold of some level 3 chem suits that we're going to be wearing, so we can focus on the testing and not about how bad we feel.
Adam's already dressed for success, so Jamie follows suit.
It's not everybody gets to come to work in their jammies.
So a persistent rumor is confirmed by the great man himself. Jamie does go to bed wearing hazmat pajamas.
Welcome, Earthlings. We mean you no harm. Our first 5 samples tested from 6 inches away. The first one's supposed to be non-flammable. Let's see if it's true.
Just for the record, that 6-inch gap is exactly the industry standard for testing flammability.
All right, you ready for number 1?
Yep.
All right, here we go.
The first canister fully lived up to its no-burn promise, so let's check the second.
Bupkis.
That's 2 quick strikes, but the third shows some promise.
Oh, not bad.
As for number 4, just lay back and bask in the ambient heat of the can that can.
Oh, that's the money right there. Want to see it again?
I think we all do.
Oh.
The key thing that made this a fireball was the kind of propellant it used. So, on to can 5.
Oh, 5 is a contender.
As it turns out, at 6 inches, 2 out of our 5 samples were aggressively flammable. So it seems that it's pretty much hit or miss whether you get a flammable propellant in one of these pepper sprays.
In other words, it's entirely possible. Now, to retest from 3 times the distance, and we'll do it with just the last 2 sprays.
Number 4 from 18 inches. Oh, it's even better.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
The CSI Fireball was a solid 6-footer. So let's see if can number 5 gets close.
Backed by popular demand in 3, 2. Oh, yeah. That's a tough call between 4 and 5.
So they found the 2 most volatile cans, but there's no guarantee that either one will ignite when it's sprayed on a fabric. To test that, we will be staging the world's first wet flannel shirt contest.
We're back in the shop because we found even the most powerful consumer fireworks we can get in the entire United States did not have the thrust we need to propel a man. So, since this myth originated in Europe, we're thinking maybe they had something a little more powerful.
And when you break it down, all skyrockets have 4 basic components. A nose cone to reduce aerodynamic drag, a pyrotechnic package to give you the sparkle, a stick to provide stability, and a motor with a fuse to give you thrust.
Now, since we weren't able to get the European skyrockets with the greater thrust, we have to make our own rocket. So we have the next best thing, a model rocket motor. It has the same exact thrust. Now all we need to do is add a cone, attach a stick, and maybe make them look more like skyrockets.
Things get off to a slowish start
I've glued myself to the rocket already.
as they set about custom building an arsenal of European-strength, single-stage skyrockets.
We pride ourselves on quantity, not quality.
Let's hope he's joking, because all these homemade fireworks have to be just as reliable as the store-bought ones.
And that's it. If I won a pageant, this would definitely be my bouquet.
Those look awesome.
All right, you guys ready to set them off?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So it's back to the bomb range with something to prove.
Yeah, I got high hopes.
If these rockets can't bear a much bigger load, the myth is as good as busted.
All right, so our first test is going to be our control. This is our new and improved rockets with no weights. We'll find out how fast they go.
This time, they've hooked up the rocket to a much safer electric fuse. And Carrie's about to show how she responds in a moment of pure panic.
In 3, 2, 1. Okay.
The skyrocket turned kamikaze, but it stayed straight enough for long enough to get the data. 96 miles per hour at the top of the scale.
I also learned something very valuable, which is, when in peril, I will use one of my coworkers as a human shield. Sorry, Grant.
But Grant remains unfazed. He's already decided they can afford to up the starting weight.
So I think we can go directly to the 150-gram load, which is exactly what the consumer-grade firework could do for its maximum capacity.
By adding small weights to single rockets, they hope to find out if 400 fireworks really could launch a human.
In 3, 2, 1.
It's gone!
I don't think that weight did a whole lot.
That weight didn't do anything.
Actually, it did, but the homemade rocket bore its burden with relative ease.
Nice.
All right, that is 53 miles per hour, so not even 50% yet.
Well, I'd also like to point out that the commercial ones that we were using before looked like they were slowing when they got to the top of the scale. These have way more thrust. I think we can add even like double the weight.
All right, let's take it up to 300 grams.
All right.
So Tori glues 6 nuts to the top of the cone of the next skyrocket.
Does it seem dangerous to launch 300 grams of steel into the air?
Well, given the flight path of the first rocket, yeah.
In 3, 2, 1.
It lifted it. All right,
Great.
let's see how fast it went.
The high speed confirms they've honed in on the Goldilocks figure for weight-bearing rockets.
That is
Wow. All right, and that is 43 miles per hour.
And that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, but you know what? It is slowing at the end of the line, so I think we're gonna have to call this the limit, the carrying capacity for the rocket motor.
Okay, with 300 grams added to what is already 100 grams for the rocket, that means we're gonna have to have about 400 rockets to get our man off the ground.
That gives validity to this myth.
All right, guess we better get
Cool.
building.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the myth of the fireworks man is alive and kicking. They just need to put all that potency into practice.
Well, So far, so good.
Yep, stun guns do provide a very reasonable spark for ignition, and some pepper sprays are quite flammable.
So now all we got to do is put the two together and see if we get some kind of spontaneous combustion.
Slow down there, Cowboy. I think there's one more thing we could take a look at in here, which is what kind of material was the shirt made of that the perp was wearing? So there's a lot of different things they make clothing out of, and some are more flammable than others. I think we need to do some tests and find out which kind of material we can find that burns the fastest.
Okay.
Armed with a lighter and a charming selection of swatches, the method is pretty straightforward.
Fabric placed on a 45-degree angle, exposed to a lighter at the bottom for 1 second, and timed how long it takes for the flame to reach the top. We compare all these and figure out which one's the most flammable.
I like it. The guy on CSI that gets set on fire was wearing a flannel shirt. Now, what is flannel? Well, in the early days, it was a wool material, then it was a wool blend, and now it can be virtually any kind of material that is thick and sort of fluffy and has this plaid pattern.
So from natural fibers
Here comes cotton.
to acrylics and acetates, the guys put the torch to some hopefully flammable fabrics.
All right, let's try rayon.
Some take their own sweet time.
45 seconds.
And that's it.
Some just refuse to catch fire.
No burning at all from wool.
And others burn up like a trail of gunpowder.
Dude, fleece burns with vigor. Bang, that's it, it's right there, 15 seconds.
Now all that remains is to find out the fastest.
The results are in. We have burned 8 kinds of fabric, gotten 8 different burn times, and the winner, it turns out, is a tie at 15 seconds. The fastest burning fabrics are both acrylic and fleece. Robert, tell them what they've won.
Thanks, Adam. Yes, today's two fabrics both win the chance to return to the game as real shirts, then get burned right down to their buttons in a winner-takes-all torch time trial. Back to you, Adam.
In order to do that, I'm going to call upon all the skills I remember from home economics in 4th and 5th grade with Miss Cabanitas. I still remember a couple things.
Adam's not showing off. We just couldn't buy a plaid fleece shirt, so this is a homespun Savage original. But he will need some torsos to hang his designs on.
That's where this guy comes in, because I'm going to make a wire mannequin that looks roughly like this, so we have something to hang him on while they burn.
In just a few minutes, they both finish flirting with fashion, and they both seem enamored with their efforts.
Show Jamie my threads. Check it out.
Who's your tailor, dude?
I am my tailor. Hey, these are one-time use. These guys look great.
Meet Bernie and his little brother Crispin.
So Bernie and Crispin get shirted up, one with a plaid that's all acrylic, and the other made from so-called fleece, another synthetic that's partly made from recycled plastic.
At this point, you may be wondering if I'm upset about having worked so hard on this only to set it on fire. And the answer is no, because I'm doing it for science. And I'm setting something on fire.
To comprehensively test the myth, the boys are eager to learn just how combustible a shirt can be. Both shirts are lit from the same point at the same time.
Right now, the acrylic really seems to be winning by a fair bit. It's much more aggressive.
Indeed. It's also clear that both of these are burning relatively slowly. I mean, it's not a whoosh.
No. I would hope it would not be a whoosh. I hope I don't have any clothes at home that would go whoosh.
With no pepper spray, both shirts burn slowly but consistently. Adam, of course, has a vested interest.
Come on, Fleece, after all our training, after all our discussion, is that all you got? You're gonna let acrylic take you to town? You're gonna let him show you up? Put something into it, man!
But he's backed the wrong blouse. Eventually, the acrylic is the first one to give up the ghost.
I'm gonna call it. 8 minutes, 25 seconds. The acrylic is completely burnt up to a crisp, and the fleece still has more than halfway to go.
Yep.
So acrylic it is, and here's the upshot. Shirts do burn, stun guns can make a big spark, and some pepper sprays are totally flammable. Now all that remains is to pull these best-case combustibles together to see if they can really make that instantaneous human fireball.
All right, so according to the test, we are gonna need a lot of these fireworks to get this guy off the ground. But the toughest part is getting all those rockets to ignite at the same time.
And how are they attached to him? What kind of rig are we talking about here?
Again, the details are vague. We do know that he launched himself off a ramp, but there's no other information.
All right, well then why don't we do this? We'll each come up with our own design, small scale. We'll attach an action figure to it, and we'll launch him off the ramp. And we'll see which one has the best launch and which one has the best flight pattern.
So in this workshop arena, 3 specialist craftsmen go head-to-head. They have just 1 hour to whip up a workable prototype. So, let the games begin.
3 Mythbusters, 40 rockets, 1 challenge. Build a flying fireworks man.
Each contestant gets 2 basic ingredients, 1 raw mini buster and 1 sprig of skyrockets. The winning design is the one that can best launch the doll from a miniature ramp.
Okay, so my idea is a giant Christmas tree-shaped fireworks cluster. I mean, what is more directional than an arrow, huh? So all the thrust is gonna go down this way and the guy's gonna go whoosh, straight out. The only problem is making sure that the exhaust from all the fireworks doesn't burn him to a crisp. I'll work that out later.
Yeah, good luck with that. Meantime,
That's the outfit.
Tori has no doubts at all that he's on a winner.
Now my design for Fireworks Man is very simple. It's basically taking a set of wings and attaching them to his back. And then down the wing, I'll be attaching rockets. Now when I launch that off, hopefully it'll act like a jet. Only thing is, I hope these guys can keep up with my pace.
Sounds more like a short-order cook than an Iron Chef. But we still haven't heard from Carrie.
Essentially, this is my design. We have rockets shooting out the back, a big wing for stabilization, a comfortable pillow for my guy to lay on, and a skateboard that's going to reduce the resistance up the ramp. Now, I think the best part of my design is that I've created a flash pan that's going to ignite all of my rockets at once, because simultaneous ignition is something that we've always had trouble with on Mythbusters.
While Carrie and Grant push on with their plans, there's been a small sensation over at Team Tori. He's decided to scrap his design and go with a new one. But it already looks like the Force might be with him.
I really wish that I had come up with Tori's design, just because I'm a big Star Wars fan, and it looks just like an X-Wing fighter.
I know it was a little late in the game to change the design of Firework Man, but, you know, I think this design is much better.
Let's hope so. Now, all our contestants have the chance to appraise the opposition.
Tori's design looks really, really cool, but I see 2 possible problems. Number 1, I think he's gonna give his driver a little bit of a hot foot because he's got his feet somewhere around where the flames should be shooting out the back of the fireworks. And secondly, ignition. With 4 different bundles of rockets, getting them all to light at the same time might be an issue.
Now, I like Carrie's street luge design. It has all the mass in line with the thrust, which is good.
However, she's got all those rockets at the back. I'm afraid that might not be stable enough. It might get off this ramp and start flipping in the air.
Now for Carrie to download on Grant. Her biggest concern is the way he's positioned his doll.
The guy's trailing behind his rocket, so all the flames are going into his face. And the little cord that he's holding onto is hopefully fireproof, because otherwise, that's gonna light on fire, the rockets go, and then the guy falls. Just a thought.
The hour is up, and these radically different designs are about to be put to the test.
3, 2, 1, and...
Done. Done.
Let's see him.
All right. Oh, you ready to put your rockets where your mouth is?
Bring it. Let's launch them.
All right, get ready to lose, you guys.
Just like Adam and Janie, they're testing at Treasure Island under the Bay Bridge. But at least they'll get the chance to take in the view.
All right, let's set up and launch these bad boys.
All right.
They're aiming to see which design has the best flight path and which one flies the farthest. For that, they'll need to stake out their turf.
That might be a little presumptuous.
Given the strength of the mini rockets, 200 feet might be a tad optimistic.
Now, for that to occur, two things have to happen. One, we have to have straight and stable flight. Two, we have to not explode on the launch pad.
Two very good points. And Tori's the first to test his luck.
I love Tori's design because it looks nothing like anything I would have ever come up with. I mean, it looks like something out of a sci-fi movie.
I have trays of black powder at each bundle of fireworks. I'm using an electric igniter to light off each of those trays of black powder. Once I hit the button, all rockets should fire at the same exact time.
That's the dream. But now it's time to face up to reality.
In 3, 2, 1.
It did something!
I think it exploded on the launch pad.
The X-Wing aircraft went pretty much nowhere, but the pilot covered some fair piece of real estate.
Tori's launch was awesome, mostly because I can't even tell what happened. And the guy ended up with his butt burned up over on the lawn in a totally different direction.
Now, there's a piece of my fireworks rocket. There's another piece. Talk about epic fail. Everything I said that was gonna happen to Carrie and Grant's rocket happened to mine. Not only did it crash and burn, it exploded into pieces.
Time for the next fledgling to test her wings. But it's Grant who makes the prediction.
And if you pick up her flight vehicle, it's a little back heavy, actually. So it could end up sort of doing, I think it's actually gonna do a loop-de-loop, as a matter of fact.
There's no better shot in the arm than kind words from a friend. Now it's Carrie's turn to try to do better than Tori.
That's it. Hold on, little missy. Fireworks man, Carrie design, small scale, in 3, 2, 1. Well, if we wanted something to go across the surface really quickly, we got it.
That was spectacular. Oh my God.
It didn't fly high, but it did fly straight. And every bit of that unlikely apparatus left the ramp. As for the added sparkles, nice touch.
My guy isn't charred. We had a perfect ignition. We had a pretty good distance. So maybe if I had longer wings, this would have been a perfect flight. I think I might actually have the winning design here.
But we're yet to see Grant's design take to the air. And he's suffering from pre-flight nerves.
Okay, here's my biggest fear. Instead of going on this nice ballistic trajectory out that way, it goes whew, and comes right back at us. If I see that happen, I'm hitting the deck. Okay, good luck.
When even the experts are scared, it's probably wise to duck and cover.
In 3, 2, 1.
Grant's launch looked more like a guy slipping on soap.
Oh!
So there's no real need for a high-speed replay. But let's do it anyway.
This one barely made it off the launch pad, did not achieve flight, could not get simultaneous ignition, and therefore has to be rejected.
Oh! Burnt to a crisp!
It kind of just fell off the ramp.
See this? This is why we don't do simultaneous ignition. Look, dud, 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 dud.
So the winning design is clearly Carrie's.
In the end, this is the design we're going with. We have one bank of fireworks that all ignite simultaneously. We have a heat shield that keeps our little driver from getting fried, and the wing created enough stability to get us a nice short flight. Now, I think if we increase the length of the wing, we'll get more stability and maybe get a perfect trajectory.
After days of experimentation, Adam and Jamie are finally ready to test the myth of the CSI stun gun.
This fine specimen of manhood here will soon be our perp for our final test. Now, in order to be a proper perp, I need him to have conductive skin. So I'm going to give him a layer of foam, and then I'm going to cover that foam with foil, and that foil will act as the conductive skin that hopefully will give us the spark to light our perp on fire. He's ready.
And in hope of a blazing conclusion, it's back to Treasure Island.
The methodology here is actually pretty simple. Our perp here is dressed in the latest fashion. The the acrylic shirt that we found the most flammable. We are going to spray him down with the pepper spray we found most flammable, number 4. And then I am going to stand back with this stun gun and pop him right in the chest and see if he bursts into flames.
All right, stand clear.
So confirming the myth of an instant massive fireball all comes down to this. Just like they did on CSI, Adam unloads for a good few seconds.
Freeze! Hey! Dude!
It's burning.
Wow! He's totally burning!
And we totally need the fire extinguisher.
You have the right to not be on fire. Anything you burn can and will be held against you in a court of law.
But do we have the right to call this confirmed?
Of course, it wasn't quite the big fireball that we saw in CSI. But this being Mythbusters, we're going to do our darndest to get one.
So they postpone the judgment, discharging 4 whole cans on a backup acrylic shirt.
Think that's enough?
No.
Just for good measure, Jamie almost doubles the dose.
All right. Freeze! Nice! Oh, yeah!
Now that's really close to the human bonfire we saw on TV.
There's your fireball.
It's instantaneous. Look at that.
Yeah, you might as well lit it with a match.
Unbelievable.
It's a fabulous fireball, but in this case, they did use an ocean of pepper spray.
So how do we want to call this one?
Well, let's do a little math. 1 acrylic shirt plus a can of flammable pepper spray plus 1 stun gun equals...
Plausible.
I agree. 1 acrylic shirt plus a stun gun plus a whole crop load of pepper spray equals...
Gratuitous.
That's our favorite 4-syllable word. So the verdict on this myth is plausible. But we're not done yet. Jamie's determined to end with a serious spectacle. And believe me, you don't want to miss this.
Okay, so we're back in the shop after our small-scale experiment. The myth that we're testing is that some crazy German thought it was a great idea to strap 400 fireworks to himself, propel himself off a ramp into a lake.
So it is going to take 400 of our homemade skyrockets to launch our fireworks man. Now the big challenge of this design is to attach all 400 together and to get them to go off at the same exact time.
Now, all of those rockets, plus the weight of a full-size guy, plus some sort of wing system, is a lot of weight, which means a lot of inertia. So we've got to find a way to reduce the amount of friction on the ramp so the rockets can do their job. Plus, we have to make sure that the fireworks guy makes it all the way to the top of the ramp and doesn't fall off like it did in my design. And that is why we've got a couple skateboards and this rail.
And I'll be attaching a new and improved wing design, which should help with the one flaw from my small scale, which is spinning out of control.
In fact, they've taken some expert advice from a rocket scientist regarding wings and fins increasing the chance of stable flight. And they figured the best way to minimize friction on the ramp is to hook 2 skateboards up to a shiny, slippery metal rail.
I can't stop.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Dude, you got to be careful.
Now, why a skateboard, you ask? Well, this was clearly not some sort of highly engineered NASA launch. This is a guy that strapped a bunch of fireworks to himself. And if you're in that mindset, what are you gonna use? You're gonna use some sort of fancy system? No, you're probably gonna use a skateboard.
Now for the sled, I came up with something interesting. A surfboard. It serves 2 purposes. For one, it's really light. It's not gonna add a lot of weight to our contraption. And number 2, we're launching, hopefully, all the way into a lake. And retrieving all of our rockets would be a pain in the butt if our whole thing sank. So, it's made of styrofoam. This thing floats.
So, while the team gets very, very busy with the building, Carrie with these new wings, and Grant with some stabilizing fins, Tori gets to play with fire.
So I've removed the sticks from the skyrockets and I've glued together banks of 100. Now that they're all glued together, what I'm going to do is cut grooves on the table saw through the nozzle area. That way, these grooves will be filled up with black powder. When I fill this whole thing up with black powder and ignite it, the flame will move through the grooves into the nozzles and ignite all of the rockets at the same exact time.
And there's no time to test Tori's groove like the present.
In 3, 2, 1.
Oh, that looks so synchronized. Woohoo!
Wow.
That
was
was
really good.
synchronized. That is a beautiful ignition system. I see good things in our future.
Whatever worked in small scale has to work as well or better in full scale, including the ramp.
Our full-scale ramp is very similar to our small-scale one. It's at a 45-degree angle, and this one is 16 feet long, which should be enough space and enough time to get us up to a speed that'll send them flying.
Back inside, Carrie's modified launch pad still needs plenty of work.
Yeah, so this is going to attach to your surfboard,
Yes.
and then you're going to have the wing go up here like that,
Yes.
and then the rockets will attach here.
Yes.
The wings, the fins, and the skateboard rail are the key additions to a makeshift vehicle that just might launch a stand-in man 150 feet.
Now, if it's not already clear, this is not a NASA spaceship. This is something that you could conceivably put together in a garage. I mean, for goodness sake, the fuselage is a surfboard.
Our brand new Buster gets a vital test fitting. And it's probably just as well he's missing the back of his head.
Now, if all of our calculations are correct, we should see this fireworks man fly up that ramp and across the lake.
Or it's going to fail miserably and explode on the ramp.
Some European fans say it worked like a charm. So now's the right time to place your bets. With the myth of the CSI stun gun wrapped up, the boys feel the need to go out in a totally gratuitous blaze of glory.
Jamie left me this really cryptic message which said only, bring him a burnable perp and dress for a fire. I am, as they say, intrigued.
Adam dresses his man in a fitting fashion, and the shirt, as you've guessed, is the famous flannel.
Are you ready, little buddy? This is actually the standard model of robot that are all of Grant's servants back at his castle.
So the savage awaits the barbarian. And Jamie's weapon of choice is a vintage Vietnam-era gasoline flamethrower.
Oh, hey, what do you got?
Stand clear, I'm going hot.
Okay.
Longtime viewers know that sometimes, when a myth falls frustratingly short of confirmation,
You see any bullet holes?
I don't see any at all.
we like to,
Firing!
turn it up a notch or 10. Once again, Jamie's ready to skip the method and go straight for the mayhem.
3, 2, 1.
There's no better way to unleash hell than a 60-foot flame.
Nice! That's what I'm talking about. Very post-apocalyptic of you.
Is that hot enough for you?
Well, that was only ever going to end one way. And thanks to a $5 shirt, we've got $1 million memory. Any kid who's ever read a comic book has surely dreamed of personal rocket propulsion. According to fans, one man actually flew 150 feet with skyrockets, so we had to see for ourselves. We've studied the physics, built the best amateur rig we could, and found a flooded quarry for the crash landing.
Oh, this place is cool.
Already dangerous.
So, if our math is correct and our fireworks do what they're supposed to, we should get a man landing in the lake anytime now.
Ooh, nice.
He's got to not explode on the launch pad, have a stable flight, and according to the myth, fly at least 150 feet. I hope he does it.
Carrie dresses Buster in a safety orange fireproof suit, as though that's going to help him. Now to check on correct starting weight.
All right, how much do you weigh?
Okay, 183.
Well, the sled weighs 60, so that makes him 243.
That's perfect. That's exactly around what we need.
All right.
Load him up, let's do this!
Come on, buddy. You're going for a ride.
Carrie and Grant fit skateboards to rails for a hopefully friction-free ride,
Now we need a surfboard-type flight vehicle.
while Tori sets the charge to ignite every last one of those 400 rockets. Fingers crossed, they will launch together.
Now, I know this might not seem like a lot of black powder, but I'm actually using 6 ounces. I mean, that would be plenty to fire off a cannonball.
So the fuses are fixed, and the very last bits of the puzzle slide neatly enough into place.
You're like a surgeon with that thing.
Do you guys realize this is a dream come true?
I think for all of us.
It's a thing of beauty.
But let's remember that Fireworks Man still has a hell of a lot to live up to.
For this myth to be possible, we need 2 things to happen. 1, we need Buster to launch off that ramp and hit the water. And 2, we need him to not be a burning, massive, melting Buster.
You can bet your bionic britches that Buster's in full agreement.
We're all wired up, ready to go.
This is Fireworks Man in 3, 2, 1.
From the shore, it's a dazzling display of smoke and sparkles. But just put yourself in Buster's shoes.
It was looking so good. We got a perfect launch. He was going up the ramp. He gets to the top of the ramp, and that's where everything goes all wrong.
In fact, it's the good, the bad, the ugly, and the awesome, all in one amazing launch. As Buster gets dragged from the drink, it's time to reflect on what worked and what didn't.
So we got simultaneous ignition. We used actual fireworks. He made it off the ramp and into the water.
Yeah, and on top of that, he didn't catch on fire or explode, which means he would have survived the launch.
We might have survived the launch, but I'm not so sure about the landing. And we didn't fulfill all the criteria of the myth. I mean, he did not go the 150 feet we talked about.
It's one of the toughest decisions they've ever been faced with. On the one hand, it was really only those loose legs tipping the sled backwards that spoiled the party. On the other hand, Buster only flew 30 feet, and there's no doubt that the Yahoo and the Myth went to way less trouble than we did, with far fewer resources. So, with regret, that's where we're drawing the line.
So, I think we're still gonna have to call this one busted.
All right, busted.
Busted.
But man, what a way to bust a myth.
Right?